Hello everybody and welcome to the Power of Self-Belief. Sorry, I'm jumping in a little bit late this morning. So welcome if you're new to my world, welcome if you're new to Lead Your Way. Lead Your Way is my private Facebook community, a community where my vision really is to hold the space for women, hold the space for women who want to step up, to speak up, to find fulfillment and have impact in their life and career. Women who want to belong, to believe, which is what this session is all about. It's all about self-belief, to find fulfillment, as I said, and have impact. Those are my kind of core pillars and the things that I would love you to achieve through being part of this community. My business is called Lead Your Way and my name is Emily Petty, and I help you through this community, through one-to-one coaching, through group coaching programs, and through working with your teams and organisations to help you love your work and love what you do. So that's a little bit about me. So today is all about the power of self-belief, and actually I wanted to start by just reading the introduction to a book called Playing Big by Tara Moore, and for me it just sums up everything that I do. That she's summed up in a book, really good book, highly recommend it. But I just thought I'd read it because for me it gives context, the context around our self-doubt and therefore our self-belief. So she says, you know that woman, she's a good friend or a colleague from work. She's smart and insightful. She gets it. Whatever the situation at her company or in her community or in the news, she has great ideas about what needs to happen. She's high integrity too. No greed, no temptation to corruption, no bigger hunger for power, and she's funny, warm and trustworthy. Sometimes you listen to her talk and think, if only people like her were in charge. So here's the thing. The way that you look at that woman, someone looks at you that way. I'm going to repeat that. The way you look at that woman, someone looks at you that way. In fact, many people do. To us, you are that talented woman who doesn't see how talented she is. You are the woman who it's clear to us could start an innovative company or pull one out of the dysfunction it's in, improve the local schools or write a book that would change thousands of lives. You are that fabulous. We wish she was speaking up more women. We wish she was speaking up more women. So Playing Big, her book, is about bridging the gap between what we see in you and what you know about yourself. So it's about moving past self-doubt and creating what you most want to create, whether in your career, in your community, or in a passion you pursue outside of your work. And I love this bit. It's about you living with a sense of freedom to express your voice and pursue your aspirations. So in summary, I believe that there is a leader, a woman who, and by leader I don't necessarily mean someone who's managing a team. I mean there's a leader, someone who is stepping up and into making a difference in this world in whatever way she chooses to do that. That woman is inside of you, and I just love the way it says that we see that in you. I see it in my clients. I see it when they come to me. I see it when they join a group coaching program, and I see it when they offer insight and advice and support and ask really insightful questions. I see it when a group come together with empathy and power. I see amazing groups of women come together, and the problem is we are all held back by self-doubt, our lack of self-belief, our belief that we are not good enough, that there's another woman out there who has got all the skills, all the confidence, all the capability to make a difference in the world, and you don't believe that that woman is you. And I'll be honest, I don't always believe that that woman is me. But the biggest change that's happened in my life is the transforming of that self-belief, is knowing when I hear that voice inside my head that says, Emily, you're rubbish. Emily, there are a million other people who are better at this than you. Someone's already done this. Why are you doing it? Someone's already said that. Like, why am I here when Tara Moore's already like articulated it so flipping brilliantly? Why bother? Well, the truth is, more of us need to know this message. Tara Moore's written a brilliant book. There are a huge number of books about leadership and self-development and overcoming our inner critic. But in truth, this time 5 years ago, I did not know anything about this. No one had ever told me about this. And if they had, it had probably gone over my head. I remember I did go to counselling, and I remember the counsellor talking about my the chimp brain, which I'm going to share with you in a minute. And it just didn't hit me. It didn't, somehow it didn't resonate. Anyway, so it didn't go from my head to my heart, and I didn't transform how I live my life. It has been a journey for me to transform how I live my life through the tools that I share. So if you're watching live, please say hi. This session is all going to be about how we can transform, how we can take that first step around self-belief. And I'm going to just introduce that within the context of our lovely brains that are there to help us breathe and walk and move and communicate and do all the things that we are going to be able to do in our lives. And Professor Stephen Peters wrote a book called The Chimp Paradox. He's also written another book which takes the chimp paradox further, which is called Path Through the Jungle, which gives you lots of really detailed exercises if you want to work in a very practical way through all of this. And so he he's studied neuroscience, he's got numerous degrees, neurologist and all anyway, technical word for that. So he talks about the three parts of our brain. So there's the chimp brain, there's the human brain, and there's the computer. So our chimp and our human both program our computer and our computer works on autopilot. So, you know, if you kind of get to work and you know that you've got to work and you can't really remember how you got to work, that's because your computer is programmed to know the exact steps it needs to take to, you know, I remember I used to get on the Northern Line and I'd get to work and I remember, how the hell did I get here? You know, how did I navigate all those people? And our brain is just programmed to do that because you do that every single day. So our chimp brain is at I can't remember whether it's the left or the right side of the brain, but this is where we hold our emotions, our feelings. This is where our fight or flight or freeze, or I think there's a flop response, comes from. It is the reactionary part of our brain. So it reacts very, very quickly to help us if we are in imminent danger. It can't quite see the future, but it says, right now, there's a saber-toothed tiger at your door. You must run. You must do something now because there's an immediate threat. And I guess there's a challenge with our evolved lifestyle is that there are very few immediate threat situations, but our brain and our body is still programmed to react in that way, and the adrenaline comes through, your breathing gets heavy, I go bright red, all of those things happen, but I can't say that I've been in very many life or death situations in my life. And often also if you've had a negative life experience, your chimp will have responded, will have programmed your computer based on that negative experience. So if, you know, someone shouts at you and you've always been shouted at and that's got a very negative association, then it's going to have an automatic response associated to that. Then our human brain is more of our thinking brain. It's more logical, it's more pragmatic, it's much, much slower to react. So it takes time to respond. And that equally can program your computer. And so what we need to do is think about not squashing our chimp. So our chimp is often where our limiting beliefs come from. So that thought that someone else is better than me, that I'm not good enough, that I will never get that promotion, that I don't have anything to say when I speak up in a meeting, so it's probably better that I keep quiet. That says, everyone else, I've said that, everyone else is better than you, for example, or you're wasting your time, people won't like you, you're making a fool of yourself. Whatever those things are that you might say, that is coming from your chimp. So we don't want to squash that, because if we try to sort of squash that and pretend that we don't feel that, so pretend that we don't think that, but equally pretend that we don't feel the emotions associated with that. So that might be guilt or disappointment or fear or anger or resentment or sadness. If we don't allow our emotions to have space and to flow, and we don't allow the chimp to speak up, and we say, well, I'm going to lock you in a cupboard, the chimp gets louder and louder and louder. And so it doesn't really resolve the problem. So what I want you to do now is have a think about, what are those voices? What are those stories, limiting beliefs, rocks in your rucksack, things that you hear yourself saying to yourself that are holding you back from stepping into the woman that you want to be, stepping into and doing the things that you love, getting that new job, taking that action, learning something new, going to a networking event, whatever it is. What are those things? So just take a moment now to write down what those things are. And I'd really encourage you, as you go through the week, to become more aware of what those things are. So I'm just going to let you do that while I take a sip of tea. And it's also worth saying, so the other reason why we don't want to squash our chimp is because the chimp also holds wonderful emotions. So joy, excitement, hope, belief, that is all held within our chimp. So if we're just kind of logical and just kind of operating sort of like a computer, we're not allowing those other wonderful emotions to flow within us. So we don't want to lock our chimp in the cupboard. We want to embrace and love our chimp and become friends with it. But actually, in order to do that first, we need to recognise what it's saying and recognise what we're feeling. And we're going to talk about thoughts today, less so on the feeling side of things, but it's always worth associating or connecting the feeling and the thought. So when you're having that thought, how does it make you feel? What does it make you do? What's the impact of you holding on to and believing the thoughts that you've written down? So that's the first question. What is the impact of you holding on to and believing those thoughts? What's it going to stop you doing? When you really deep down think about who you want to become, what you'd like to achieve, where you'd like to get to, what is the impact of that? So, for example, if you have amazing ideas, and actually in the book Tara Moore talks about, seeing women who have ideas, who are innovative and creative and actually have solutions in the workplace, but they believe that they don't have a voice, that they don't have anything to say, and so they don't speak up. And the impact of that, like when we think about as a society, the impact of that is quite big when we think about all of the ideas that we all hold and that we all have, the gifts, the strengths that we have, and we're not sharing those. So, from a society point of view and from a kind of women speaking up point of view, and the impact that we could have in the world point of view. I think it just makes me really sad to think that we're not speaking up. But then from a personal point of view, what does that mean for you? And as you hear that voice in your head, the key is to recognise, notice when your chimp is talking. So I've become quite good at this, and what I do, it's my specialism, knowing how to listen to my chimp, and I shared earlier in the week that I had a bit of a wobble, and I woke up and I decided to go straight for my mobile phone, look online, and I saw that someone else was doing some amazing thing or had some brilliant win, and immediately my chimp said, "You see, Emily, you're a bit rubbish. You haven't achieved that. You're not doing that." And the feelings of, oh, I'm a failure, just washed over me. And this was 30 seconds after I got up. And, there's some practical things that I can do to make sure that chimp doesn't speak in that moment. Okay, don't pick up my phone at first thing in the morning, but ultimately I'm going to look at my phone, and I'm on social media. So I'm going to see these things, and actually recognising and noticing that voice was a really key thing for me. So the first step is recognising that noticing that voice. And the second thing we can do is to create a little bit of a persona around our inner critic, that voice. So it might be moaning Margaret, or I can't think of a name now. You might want an iteration on the name of your inner critic. So to give it a little bit of a personality, if you're an artist, you can kind of draw them. What do they look like? This little voice on your shoulder. And someone else that I work with, she called the inner voice, not just one person, but she called them back row hecklers. So you imagine you're on your stage, and in the back row, they're in the dark. So actually she didn't want to kind of identify them, but that idea that they're sitting in the back, they're not coming out into the front, but they're heckling from the back, remaining a little bit anonymous. They're actually a little bit cowardly, and don't have that kind of confidence to speak out. Well, they are speaking out, but not to sort of put a name to themselves. So have a go at thinking about, actually, what would your inner critic look like? How would you want to describe your inner critic? Whether that be a moaning Myrtle, back row heckler, whatever that is, create a little bit of a persona around it. And then listen to what your inner critic is saying and notice. So a reframe is to say that you notice that you're having the thought that, or you can say, thank you for sharing that, blah, 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 blah. And you want to just try to remove yourself and your own inner self from that thought. And actually, in a moment, if you're sort of facing something very immediate where you need to respond and react quickly, Stephen Peters talks about there's 90 seconds for our body to kind of calm down and process it from the very quick chimp reaction to the human reaction. So if you are having that thought, maybe within a meeting, and you're like, oh, I don't know what to say, give yourself 90 seconds. So you can use breathing to do that, to say just stop and slow your breathing down. You can use techniques like just stopping and having a sip of water. And it kind of just disconnects you, but brings you into the present. Another thing you can do is noticing. So say if you're in the middle of a meeting and you are just feeling your brain's going, I need to say something, but I don't know what to say. Your inner critic's whirling, what are people thinking of me, blah, blah, blah. Just think, actually, I'm going to look around the room and I'm going to find 5 things that are blue. I'm going to notice 3 different sounds that I can hear. So the reason why we do this is it's grounding ourselves in the present moment. So the chimp is trying to react extremely, extremely quickly out of a fear that you are under threat. But actually, if you could ground yourself in the present moment, where in reality you aren't under threat, you're not going to die in that present moment, that will help you move into your human brain and will help you to work through that limiting belief, that self-doubt as it comes. And another tool that you can do is just ground yourself. So just notice, you know, your physical presence, like how you're touching the floor, how you're seated in the chair. Just sit up, just move your body and become aware of your body and your physical presence in the room. That can really, really help. So as you're in that moment, as you're listening, as you're noticing, as you're becoming aware, you could use those tools which just help your brain to slow down, because that's really what you want to do. You want to slow your chimp down, help your chimp to realise that it's not the end of the world from that point of view. And then the kind of more deeper thinking process that you can do is around challenging that limiting belief, that story. So, you know, am I going to completely say, oh, I'm going to mess up. I'm not going to say anything very useful or helpful. So I'm going to mess up in this live. I'm not going to say anything particularly useful. Is that true? Well, it could be true. I could say something not particularly useful, but I could also say something that's useful. And maybe in 20 minutes, I might say half things that are useful. I might say one or two silly things that people might forget. So you're challenging, actually, is it true that, you know, everything's going to go wrong because I say something in this live? And the truth is, no. You know, as confession, there's one person watching at the moment, and if a million people watch and it's the most terrible thing, you know, I can take it down off the internet. It doesn't matter. I can delete it. But my hope is that it is useful for the person watching, and people are going to watch. So if you're watching on replay, hi. I believe that there is use in this, so I've kept it up if you're watching it on replay. So we challenge that. Is it true? Can I find evidence to say whether it's true? So for example, another example might be, I can't do the presentation. I just can't do it. I'm absolutely paralysed by it. I can't do it. And I've been in that position. I remember I pulled out of doing a presentation at university and didn't do it. And because I was so paralysed by fear and self-doubt. And at the time I didn't have these tools. But now if I get those thoughts or those fears about doing a presentation or a talk or running a workshop, I remember that I have run a lot of workshops and done a lot of talks, and I've had positive feedback. So I rely on that evidence to help me work through. So you rely on the evidence. If it is true that, you know, you might be terrible because it's the first time that you have done a presentation, you've never ever done a presentation before, you can reframe it and say, well, this is an opportunity for me to learn. So for example, this live, if it was my first live, I'd say, well, I'm going to try, I'm going to do it. It's an opportunity for me to learn. I'm going to ask for feedback. If I watch it back and think that it's terrible, I'm going to take it down. I'm not going to die. My reputation is not going to be hugely ruined. It's going to be okay. And then we want to think about that logical alternative. So what is the alternative? What's a more liberating assumption when I work through time to think questions? I'm not working through time to think questions here, but I have worked through those questions in some of these sessions. But you want to look to an alternative truth. So that alternative truth might be, this is an opportunity for me to learn and grow, and I'm going to ask for feedback from my boss after the session. So think of what is liberating around that limiting assumption. So if you're watching live or on replay on Facebook, I'd love to hear your thoughts. You know, what are your limiting assumptions or your limiting beliefs, your limiting stories that your inner critic is saying? What is true? You know, is it true? Can you challenge that truth? And what is your alternatives, your flip to that statement that your chimp brain is telling? Because what you want to do is program your human brain to say, I'm using this as an opportunity to learn. I'm using this as an opportunity to learn. So you're reprogramming your human brain so that your computer can be reprogrammed to say, I'm ready to speak up. I'm ready to do my presentation. It might go wrong. I might mess up, but it's an opportunity to learn. I'm going to ask for some support and find some tips to help me do it really well. So there's lots of ways that we can find to help us move forward and take action. And it's in that point that we take action. And I shared yesterday in a reel on Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram, please do. Emily Petty, Leadership Coach, about belief and belief feeling like an inactive or a passive state. I just sit back and I just believe and I trust. When we step into self-belief, that is when we take action. When we're in self-doubt and lack of belief, that is when we procrastinate. That's when we don't act. That's when we don't take action or move forward. And then the final thing to say is just this is something that we practice. As I said, it comes up for me. It comes up, I know I've heard like the most amazing, inspirational people talk about how they still work through self-doubt. And I think that's really important to know that you are not alone. And belief is a daily practice. And one of the ways that I work through that is by journaling. So just reflecting on, writing that down, those questions down. What's come up for me today? What have I learned? How am I growing? How am I moving forward? Because it's in that state that we move into growth mindset. It's in that state where we start to slow our chimp brain down and gather a sense of perspective. And it's really the perspective piece that we want when we step into belief. It's the belief and trust that even though things might be taking a long time, maybe there's stuff that's out of your control, but you are believing that things are working for good because you stand in your own power and in your own inner self-belief. So if you found that tool helpful, and if you are struggling with self-doubt, if you're struggling with that inner belief in yourself, but know that deep down there's an inner leader within you that wants to step up and make a difference in the world, then I am opening up my coaching spots for March. Where are we? March, April, May. I have got 3 spots available for one-to-one coaching over those 3 months. I offer a power hour. I also offer 3 coaching sessions or a 6-month coaching program. So if you're interested in how having someone holding the space for you to work through those questions. So some people find it's absolutely fine just to do the journaling, to do that inner work themselves. But actually, if you know, in order to step up, in order to take that action, you need to be held to account. You need someone to hold the space for those thoughts and those feelings so that you can proactively work through them. Then coaching is for you. So if that's resonated, do drop me a line, either message me on Facebook or drop me an email at hello@emilypettyconsulting.com, and we can book a discovery call where I can just talk through how I work. I can find out a bit about you, what you want from coaching, and we can get started. So if you're interested in coaching, please do drop me a line. I'd love to work with you.